Friday nights used to carry a particular kind of promise for a certain kind of American household. Not the noisy promise of going out, not the blank promise of scrolling through streaming queues until someone fell asleep on the couch, but the quieter agreement that the television would be on at 8 o'clock, and the Baxter family would be there. Last Man Standing earned that loyalty over 9 seasons, survived a cancellation that left its cast blindsided, relocated from ABC to Fox, rebuilt major parts of its cast twice over, and still averaged more than 8 million viewers an episode when the network finally decided to pull the plug. Most television shows never come close to one of those things. This one managed all of them, and the story behind how it happened involves more political tension, more money, more last-minute decisions, and more genuinely strange turns than most fans sitting at home on a Friday night ever realized. Tim Allen said no 3 times. That detail rarely surfaces when people discuss how Last Man Standing came together, but it matters more than almost anything else about the show's origins. By 2011, Allen had already walked away from a CBS offer worth $1 million per episode, which should tell you something about how carefully he had started to manage his choices after Home Improvement, the sitcom that made him one of the most recognized comedians in America through most of the 1990s, wrapped in 1999. When producer Jack Burdett introduced him to the Mike Baxter character, Allen's initial response was flat refusal. He felt he was being asked to step into a slightly older version of the same territory he'd already covered, another well-meaning dad navigating a house full of people smarter than him. What broke his resistance wasn't a bigger salary or a better time slot. Allen negotiated himself into the executive producer chair, alongside the starring credit, securing genuine creative authority over the show's direction. And that authority would prove important once the series started pushing regularly into political comedy territory that made network executives nervous. ABC had designed Last Man Standing to function as a kind of modern echo of All in the Family, a conservative protagonist whose values collided weakly with a family that didn't necessarily share them, and whose arguments would leave the audience doing the work of deciding who was right. The premiere in October 2011 drew 13.2 million viewers, making it the biggest comedy debut the network had managed since 2014. And through 6 full seasons on ABC, the show averaged over 8 million viewers per episode. Dominant numbers for a Friday night time slot that television networks had long treated as a place to quietly bury their least promising material. Alexandra Croce played Kristen Baxter in that first season, and built something genuine with the character in a short amount of time. Kristen was the oldest Baxter daughter, a young, single mother raising her son Boyd after getting pregnant at 17, living back under her parents' roof while trying to piece her life together, and Croce gave her a quality that felt both comedic and emotionally honest. Her sparring with Allen's character produced some of the first season's sharpest moments. None of it saved her job. After the season ended, ABC announced the recast, offering creative differences as the explanation, but the actual reasoning ran deeper than that phrase usually covers. The producers had decided to push Kristen toward more direct ideological arguments with Mike Baxter, which required the character to feel older and more established than Croce's version projected. A secondary issue had been nagging at the production throughout that first season. Croce was actually younger than Molly Ephraim, who played Mandy, the middle sister, and that visual inconsistency kept surfacing in audience feedback whenever the two appeared together. Amanda Fuller, older than both actresses, stepped in for season 2 and brought her own reading to the role, but the recast left a bruise that a portion of the audience never entirely forgave. Ryan Vogelson's journey across the full run of the series is probably the most layered casting story the show produced. Nick Jonas appeared in a December 2011 Christmas episode as Ryan, Kristen's ex-boyfriend and the father of her son Boyd, when Jonas was 19 years old. The character as written was thin, a nervous teenager who had run from his responsibilities and came back trailing guilt. And while the appearance generated attention, it was the kind that lives and dies on celebrity recognition rather than character depth. Tim Doyle's arrival as showrunner heading into season 2 changed the character's entire function within the show. Doyle wanted Ryan to work as a genuine intellectual counterweight to Mike Baxter, someone politically outspoken and self-assured enough to hold his own in any argument the writing threw at him. Jordan Masterson stepped into the role in 2012 and built something completely different from Jonas's version. His Ryan evolving steadily across the seasons, from a struggling young dad into someone running a cannabis operation called Best Buds. The writers found consistent comedy in watching Ryan unconsciously drift toward the capitalist values he had always claimed to oppose. The longer he stayed in business, and Mike's visible amusement at that drift never got old for the audience. The cancellation announcement in May 2017 landed without warning for a series that had no obvious reason to expect it. Ratings held strong, the audience remained loyal, and the cast had every expectation of continuing into another season. 2 months before ABC made the decision public, Allen had appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live and compared being a conservative working in Hollywood to living in 1930s Germany, a comment that generated enough coverage to make the subsequent cancellation feel immediately suspicious to a large portion of the fan base. Network president Channing Dungey stated publicly that politics had played no role, that the decision reflected a broader programming shift moving ABC's Friday nights away from comedies and toward fantasy and science fiction. Allen posted to social media that he felt stunned and blindsided by what had happened. Nancy Travis, who had played Vanessa Baxter for the full run on ABC, shared her disappointment openly with the audience and thanked fans for their years of loyalty. Hector Elizondo left room in his interviews for the suggestion that something beyond scheduling had motivated the call. Younger cast members, Molly Ephraim and Caitlin Dever among them, read the situation clearly and started lining up new projects rather than sitting on hold. The fan response that followed became one of the more unusual Save the Show campaigns in recent television history. A petition to reverse the cancellation gathered more than 400,000 signatures within a single day of the announcement. Toy tools arrived at ABC's offices from viewers referencing Allen's handyman character. Paid billboards appeared in Los Angeles and New York, demanding the show's return. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker entered the public conversation, suggesting the cancellation might carry a political motive. The financial reality behind the decision involved ABC paying $3 million per episode because 20th Century Fox produced the show, with Allen's salary of $200,000 per episode, adding to a bill the network had apparently decided it was done carrying. Fox spent the following year pitching the series to CMT and NBC, before concluding it should bring the property in-house. On May 11, 2018, Fox announced the revival after watching ABC's Roseanne reboot draw massive numbers, and identifying exactly what kind of opening that created for a conservative-leaning family comedy with an established audience. The total investment reached $50 million, and what Fox got in return for that commitment was a production schedule that left almost no room for anything to go wrong. Scripts had to be written in 15 weeks. Filming started in August, shooting 3 episodes per week on a set that had to be rebuilt from the foundation, because the original had been taken apart after cancellation. Each episode now cost $1.1 million, up from $800,000 during the ABC run. Allen's pay increased to $235,000 per episode, placing him among the highest-paid actors in American network television at that point. Fox offset the climbing costs by selling streaming rights to Hulu and CMT at $1.5 million per episode, and the production team found additional savings by filming more efficiently and reducing location shoots. When the first season on Fox delivered 8 million viewers with a strong premiere, all of that financial exposure looked considerably more reasonable in retrospect. Molly Ephraim had already taken on commitments she couldn't set aside by the time the revival came together, including work on Brockmire with Hank Azaria and Halt and Catch Fire, and returning as Mandy Baxter wasn't something the schedule could accommodate. Producers casting the replacement weren't looking for someone who approximated Ephraim's look or energy. They wanted someone who could bring a genuinely different quality to the role. Molly McCook was cast. The differences between her version of Mandy and the previous one were visible from the first episode, and the production leaned into those differences with on-screen jokes about the change, rather than trying to quietly minimize it. Some viewers pushed back immediately, circulating the hashtag #NotMyMandy through the early weeks of Season 7. McCook built her reading of the character around Mandy's passion for fashion design, and, as the seasons progressed, around more emotionally demanding material involving pregnancy and her relationship with Kyle. The performances she delivered in later scenes alongside Allen gradually pulled in the portion of the audience that had initially resisted the transition. Caitlin Dever moved faster after the ABC cancellation than almost anyone had predicted. Her work in Kathryn Bigelow's film Detroit announced her as a serious dramatic performer, and the 2019 film Booksmart, made alongside Beanie Feldstein, grossed $25 million at the box office and collected some of the strongest critical notices of that year. Netflix's Unbelievable brought Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations. By the time Last Man Standing was re-established on Fox, Deaver's schedule operated at a level that made full-time series commitment almost logistically unworkable. She moved from series regular to recurring guest star, appearing in 7 episodes of Season 7, 2 in Season 8, and 3 in the final season, including the series finale. The COVID-19 pandemic added mandatory 14-day quarantine requirements to each appearance, turning an already complicated scheduling situation into something genuinely chaotic for the production team. Writers kept Eve Baxter present in the story's fabric by sending her character to the Air Force Academy and staging video call scenes when Dever couldn't be on set in person. And at least one episode was built entirely around the specific filming window her external commitments allowed. Fox announced in May 2020 that the 9th season would be the last, a decision that surprised fans given the show was averaging 8.3 million viewers per episode and ranking as Fox's second highest rated comedy. Producer Kevin Abbott confirmed that early planning for a 10th season had already been underway, including a storyline where Amanda Fuller's Kristen would assume control of Outdoor Man and reshape it into Outdoor Woman, a generational handover that would have carried the show into genuinely new creative territory. Writers had developed plans for return appearances by Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Richard Karn, with storylines designed to pay off threads running back through the earliest seasons of the original run. None of that survived the network's decision. The final season found its defining moment through negotiations that came close to falling apart before they started. Ideas for connecting Last Man Standing to Home Improvement had been circulating in the writers' room for years. Shared universe storylines, holiday specials bringing both casts together, a concept where Mike Baxter discovered he shared a distant family connection with the Taylor family from the earlier sitcom. But multi-studio legal complexity and the practical difficulty of negotiating between multiple rights holders had stopped every one of them before reaching the script stage. Disney owned the home improvement rights, and getting formal clearance proved difficult enough that Abbott later acknowledged the crossover wasn't officially approved until the day before the script reading, and he had made clear to Disney's representatives that he was prepared to proceed without authorization to force their hand. Alan rewatched home improvement episodes specifically to keep Tim Taylor's physical rhythms and comedic instincts distinct from Mike Baxter's, so that viewers seeing both characters share a scene would feel they were watching two genuinely different men, rather than the same performer switching between modes. The final episode referenced Wilson and Tool Time directly, gave Tim Taylor a credible reason for appearing in Colorado, and drew a line connecting two television series that together had defined Alan's entire career in the medium, sending Last Man Standing out with both history and emotional weight behind it, which is the only way a show like this deserved to end.